Mac, heads up. Bobcat's on the move. Driver can wait.
That's fine, thanks, Andy.
Hey, Kate, bear with me. It's gonna get a little noisy here. We gotta clear out some lines.
Take your time. Just let me know when you can talk.
Okay, road's safe now. Bring the van on up.
Will do. Also, Mac, the NATO guys, they've kicked in all the doors. You're free to search inside the buildings now.
Got it. At least I can get out of the fucking rain. I'll come find you in a bit.
Have fun reminiscing.
Whole families, you know?
What's that, Nathan?
Sorry, I'm talking to myself. Old habit. Just this whole mess.
The war.
Everything. I focus on my work, get the job done, but now and again, it's hard not to think. What happened to the folks here?
How had things deteriorated so quickly? I mean, Altis is not exactly third world, yet food became scarce.
It's the little things. A local delivery stops, trawler is damaged, farmland gets mined. It's an almost imperceptible but fragile network. So when war comes, things just fall apart. Our camp in the town, I still remember it clear as day.
Were there many of you?
From IDAP? No, not really. 4, maybe. Sometimes a couple more, depending on what we had going on. It was mainly logistics, but we did have a doctor and an ambulance.
So, Nathan, may I ask, when you first came to Oreo Castro, what were you doing there?
IDAP asked me to give some talks on landmines.
Talks? Who with?
Anyone who'd listen, really. It was all about raising awareness. Going back to what I said about the people here, their support for the guerrillas, sometimes it was a lot more than food and water.
What, guns?
Yeah, even after the government troops arrived, garrisoned their mayor's house, folks were still doing all they could for the cause.
My understanding of NATO's actions, particularly against the guerrillas, it's patchy. Maybe you could help fill the gaps?
Sure. Well, aside from the odd direct engagement, it was mostly aerial support, drone strikes. Of course, that all came from the air base, the one on Stratus.
I see. Not Altis.
No. Even before they were forced to leave, their presence on the mainland didn't stack up to much. Morning. You been in?
You kidding me? I ain't going in there, man. That shit's all yours.
Where are you now?
Who, me? I'm exploring.
I can hear an echo.
Yeah, I'm in what used to be the mayor's place, actually. At least it was before the government forces took it over.
Tell me more about Staff Sergeant Adams. You met him on a previous deployment. That must have been in Generous, right?
No, actually, this was after I'd left the military. Previous deployment with IDAP, Pakistan. It must have been, 15 years ago? I think. Feels like another lifetime. I got a leaflet here. The Army must have scattered thousands of these.
Propaganda.
Something like that. This one says, there's still time to surrender. Maybe a bad choice of words considering.
Time to surrender. What's the context here?
This was last year, September. These leaflets, they were dropped maybe a day before the fighting began. You see, the guerrillas there, they'd found themselves a new leader. Charismatic, ex-military. For him, this was no time to surrender. Far from it. In fact, he used that time to rally his people, encourage them to resist, build defenses. Meanwhile, the Army was setting up for a major offensive. The attack on Oreo Castro, it was no secret. Of course, after the leaflet drop, IDAP started to pull out of the town. So the little I do know, well, that brings us back to the brother, the one who disappeared. His name was Alexis. He volunteered to build a barricade. Town was his home, after all.
So, these leaflets, they were a warning to the town.
Yeah, they confirmed the offensive.
The government was concerned about civilian casualties.
Don't sound too surprised.
So, NATO's message, do you think it was getting through? I mean, according to the laws of armed conflict, that's the principle of precaution, right?
Sure, maybe. Or maybe they were just sick of all the extra paperwork. By that point, the guerrillas were short on vehicles, damaged, destroyed, or otherwise. They had to improvise. IDAP's neutrality was one thing, but the situation they faced was quite another.
You mean to say even your own vehicles were commandeered?
Nothing like biting the hand that feeds you, huh?
Context here. This barricade.
I mean, it was crude, right? A gap between two outcrops of rock, natural bottleneck. The guerrillas hoped to block the road by jamming it with vehicles.
If I understand it, you know about what happened through the brother. Alexis, was it? Did you meet him?
Not directly, but, it's a small town, right? People knew Alexis. After what happened here, I talked to the locals. Found out what I could. The rest of what I know is pieced together from the commission report itself.
Actually, that incident report, the evidence you submitted, that's partly why I asked for the interview. I want to gain a human perspective.
Well, that's understandable. I mean, for a humanitarian commission, those reports tend to be,
A little detached, yes.
As for the vehicles in the barricade, the commission actually linked the plates to a number of locals. Of course, several were still missing after the incident, so the investigation made some assumptions. Hey, just a thought. You remember the earthquakes back then?
Yes, they were quite frequent. Were IDAP at all concerned about that?
Oh, yeah. Any kind of disaster relief on top of what we were dealing with, it would have just about finished us off completely. Sorry, I shouldn't laugh. I was thinking, he even took a local priest's car. I remember I was talking to Father Georgiopoulos, and he was actually very good about the whole thing.
How so?
Something about rich men and camels.
So, just to clarify, in your email you said you served as a combat engineer, the Marine Corps?
That's right. South Zagoria, generous.
Then it's fair to say you're no stranger to the subject of my article, the laws of armed conflict.
I've seen a few things, heard stories. It's rarely been, clear-cut, right and wrong.
Oh, absolutely. That's why it's so important to gain your perspective. You've seen things from both sides. I mean, now as an NGO too.
Sure, yeah.
Do you think Alexis, thought twice about taking these vehicles?
Look, sure, these are his neighbors, but this was their home, and it was under attack. What would you do?
After Alexis built the barricade, what then? Did he stay inside the town?
No, that's where the story gets more complicated. The barricade itself was later chained up and set on fire by someone else. I don't know quite who. Alexis, he headed west to lay mines. Anti-tank mines were already in the ground. If there's no pull fuse, and so long as they've not been stacked, they aren't too hard to remove. But Alexis, although he didn't use anti-handling devices, he did create a hybrid minefield.
AT mines. Mixed with APs?
That's it, yeah. He put anti-personnel mines around the anti-tank ones, made clearance all that much harder.
These mines, how did they get hold of them?
They got them when the government's outposts fell into guerrilla hands. Bounding mines. A type that leaps up a meter into the air before exploding. Nasty stuff. Hell, nowadays they're even made with plastic casing to throw off older types of mine detector.
Lovely.
Oh yeah, just do yourself a favor. Don't look up Bouncing Betty injuries online.
And they're still there?
Mm-hmm. And not for long. We're setting up our demining drones as we speak. You know, thinking about it, even if we had a record of where Alexis's mines were, it may not do much good.
No? I thought minefield maps were a key part of your work.
Most folks don't realize, but landmines, they don't stay put. Heavy rain, landslides, keeping a map current ain't so simple. And with all the earthquakes in this region, there's little chance they'd all be in the same place. I don't know, maybe just gallows humor, but we've got an expression for that. Landmines have legs. Alexis proved to be quite the combat engineer. He placed the mines exactly as he'd been shown.
So, moving on, where did Alexis go next?
He took a quad bike up to the castle behind the town.
The castle? Why?
He was needed at the guerrillas' base camp.
Okay, his group were running things from up at the castle.
Mm-hmm. And I see what you're getting at. Yeah, Geneva Convention's cultural objects, I think.
The barricade. There wasn't any way around it then?
From the road? No, well, not unless you cut through the compound.
Maybe a technical question.
Go ahead.
In these situations, do those involved commonly record the locations of minefields?
That's a tough one. Take this situation, for example. I'm convinced Alexis would have made a record. It's his home, after all. But do we have access to that information? No. And that's the problem. Things, information, people, landmines, they get lost in the fog of war. But that's the thing about landmines. Lost or not, they stick around. They wait to be found.
Do you feel these preparations made a difference?
In the short term, I do, yeah. The barricade held. The government's tanks were knocked out on the road.
And in the long term?
I'd go on, but as you may have heard, it's getting kind of loud here.
By the sounds of it, you've got your hands full.
This will only take a minute. Be right back.